Hi, we're your hosts. I'm Joanna.
And I'm Mark. Oh,
Oh, and
and
one
one
more
more
thing
thing
before
before
you
you
die.
die.
This week we decided to watch Ginger Snaps, and it was a movie made in the 2000s, and it's by John Fawcett. And Mark, you actually recommended this one. Let me know how you found this movie.
Yeah, actually, one of my coworkers, Rochelle, put me on this movie. I was telling her about the podcast that we're doing, and she immediately hopped on it and told me that I need to watch this movie, that it changed her life. So,
I have a question. What would you rate this movie before we talk about it?
mm, as a movie, like I'd say it's probably a 6 out of 10 in my opinion. But as a genre movie and its genre that it's going for, I'd say it's probably like an 8 or a 9
That's
within like the
interesting.
werewolf within like the werewolf horror genre because it did have a lot of interesting plot points.
Okay. I mean, I think this movie is one of those where you can't take it too seriously.
Oh,
Um,
definitely not. Definitely
it's
not.
like very funny at parts, but
Hmm.
also I've never seen anything like it before. So it's one of those movies that I would recommend to anyone because it's out there.
I feel like it's a movie for everybody, right? So it has something for the intellectual there, in the aspects of how to cure the virus. And then there's also aspects of horror, which people can enjoy, or people that are fans of horror. So it's kind of has a little bit of everything for everyone there.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And like for a movie that was made in 2000, like to me that's it just surprised me, I think. So let's talk about how this movie starts.
Right.
It starts off with this like intro collage thing of them being obsessed with taking pictures of each other being dead and like being portrayed as dead. And then
Yeah,
we
that kind of
find
threw me
out,
off in the beginning when I saw that for the first time. I was like, "Holy shit, these girls are demented." But then as we went on to watch the movie, I was like, "Okay, I kind of started to get it how why they're like that."
yeah, I just thought it was so funny how at first they just throw us in and we're super confused at like these videos and pictures of them being dead.
Yeah.
And then it turns out to be their movie project for a class.
Yeah, yeah.
And the professor is just super appalled and he hates it. But the whole class loved like their project. And I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, Ginger, she was like smiling throughout the whole thing. She was like enjoying it, like showing the pictures that she had.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting intro, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before, so I wanted to mention
Mhm.
that. And also, right after that, there is a dog that pretty much dies in the neighborhood, right?
The neighborhood dog.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you because I never understood that plot of the dog's dying.
I think it's just like implying that the original werewolf that's out there
Is the one
is
killing them,
just killing the dogs. Yeah, like
right?
it hasn't found any human victims yet, so it just goes after dogs. Maybe
Okay.
it wasn't as powerful or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is the first werewolf that we are like seeing. We don't know if there's any
Yeah,
before that, and
yeah, it
this is
does
a
raise up a
little,
couple good questions. That is like a
yeah,
good plot hole, I
yeah,
guess. There's how
very
come there hasn't been
confusing.
somebody that got infected before, or how
Right.
are there not more?
So then we get this scene of them having like a dying pact where
Hmm.
if one of them dies, then the other one does as well. And we see Bridget, she kind of doesn't love that pact anymore. And I thought it was really interesting because that's where the part of the sisters not getting along as much anymore starts to show. Like we can see that Bridget still loves her sister a lot, but her sister's very hard-headed.
Very, yeah.
And that's where she gets mad and then she starts going to the woods. And that's pretty much where she gets attacked. And she
Yeah,
starts,
she was they were just trying to figure out who killed the dog, right? Because the first dog that you mentioned was killed in like the beginning of the movie. But then the rival or Ginger and Bridget's rival,
hmm,
I think her name was Trinity or Trina,
Trina,
right?
Trina,
Yeah,
yeah.
Trina. She was the one on the lax or the field hockey team who was accusing them of killing their dog as like a payback, for how they were treating her or how she was treating the girls. So they probably assumed that they were the ones that killed them when it was actually the werewolf. So
Yeah, so then she gets attacked. It's just, well, let's go back to that scene actually of Trina because they talked about killing the dog, like somebody killed the dog in the neighborhood, and Trina ends up pushing Bridget, right? And she falls on top of just guts. And I still don't understand that part because when we watched it, I commented to you, like, are they just seeing this? Is this just a vision, or is there actually something dead
Yeah.
on the ground and nobody's
Oh
saying
yeah.
anything about it? Because that part was
That
really
was
funny
really
to
random.
me. And apparently, like, I looked this up on IMDb, they said that those guts are like dog guts.
Real dog guts.
No, like I'm saying like plot wise, like they're
Okay.
supposed to be dog
Yeah, yeah.
guts, which was interesting to me because does that mean the werewolf killed another dog in the schoolyard? I don't know.
That that part was definitely a trippy piece. Maybe it was just like a future. She can like see the future or something like that. She knew
Yeah,
something bad was gonna happen. So
maybe.
after Trina accused both Ginger and Bridget of killing her dog,
Hmm.
they obviously turned her away and were like, "What are you doing? Like you're crazy. Of course we wouldn't kill your dog." She stormed off, right?
Hmm.
And then they were right next to a playground, a children's playground. They heard some noises from the woods, right?
Yeah.
And something happened where Bridget turned around for like 1 second, not even like a long time at all, and
Yeah.
Ginger was gone, disappeared into the
Hmm.
woods, being dragged in by the werewolf. So, and then Bridget ran in there, revived her, and I don't know how. I feel like the werewolf didn't do a good job at attacking her because she came out alive. I think that you know she'd be super dead by that point, but no, she came back and she was like healed within 20 minutes of being attacked viciously by a werewolf. Like her cuts started going
Gone.
away, yeah, gone, everything. And
Pretty
then
much.
instead of hair or instead of just normal cuts, she started growing hair out of those. So that
Hmm.
was kind of freaky.
And do you
And then,
remember in that
yeah.
part in the woods when Bridget goes to save Ginger, she takes a photo. I thought that was one of the funniest scenes ever because she's trying to help her sister, but at the same
Yeah,
at just like the same time she just flashes the werewolf with a picture and he gets all
yeah,
confused. And it's so funny
yeah,
to me that throughout all of this she just gets a picture of him. But
yeah.
that's how we find out later that it is a werewolf because of that picture.
Mhm. I think it's also important to note like some of the themes in the movie because at the same time that Ginger was attacked by the werewolf, that was about the same time when she started getting her period. So I
Hmm.
guess it's like a theme or like a commentary on womanhood and growing up. And of course, they had to put the analogy of like turning a werewolf into like becoming into a woman. Like
Yeah.
all monsters are women, but I don't believe that. But it was like still a cool theme that like that they brought into the movie.
Yeah. So then they run away and they almost get hit by a car who is being driven by Sam, which was the
The drug
dealer.
dealer, yeah,
Yeah.
this local school drug dealer.
Yeah. In my comments, I go, in comes the drug dealer who hangs around the school but doesn't actually attend it. So
Yeah,
he's the one who actually runs over the werewolf. And he pretty much doesn't really look back. He kind of just drives away. He's like, what the hell was that? And then drives away because he's scared of what he saw, I guess. And then, as you said, she starts growing hair everywhere, and Bridget starts to go to Sam for answers.
yeah.
And the first thing he tells her is that a silver ring will cure whatever
Any of
happens.
her,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know if you remember the part of her piercing her own belly button with
yeah,
that
yeah, I
ring.
do. Yeah,
I
that was
think a lot of
really
this
creepy.
movie like slightly traumatized me because it's not like you see her fully pierce her belly button. I'm sure
Yeah,
it's
that was
like
something. I definitely didn't expect them to show that to us.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I like about this movie is a lot of parts I'm like I was not expecting that to be a visual thing. I thought it would be more of
yeah,
like insinuations. And I think
mm,
that's what's cool with it too.
right.
So then Trina starts to go crazy over her dog missing. So she goes to their house and essentially says, you kidnapped my dog. And then by this time, Ginger is already like full hair. She has a tail. She
Yeah,
has
pretty much already
everything.
fully. And
And
I think before we go into that, I think it's important to talk about like the relationship between Ginger and Bridget because like even from the beginning of the movie, they were like ride or die, right? As you
mhm,
mentioned, Ginger was the one that wanted to have the death pact with her sister.
yeah.
But as the movie came or went on, and after she got infected with a werewolf disease or whatever you want to call it, she started getting more and more distant from her sister. She
Sister.
was like starting to get way more interested into the boys that were showing her attention. She more wanted to going out to parties, and the big part is that she was like bloodthirsty. She was trying to kill anything and everything that moved.
Hmm.
And she even got that one asshole. What was his name? Jimmy?
Oh, I forgot his name. I know exactly what you're talking
Ooh,
about.
what's his name? What's his name?
But they started going out, and
Yeah,
it was one
yeah.
of the boys that they made sure it was the thing between the sisters where they didn't like him. They didn't like
Mhm.
anyone at their school, but as soon
Yeah.
as Ginger starts to become more werewolf, she starts to gain interest
Oh,
in
she
all
had
these little things.
right. So she had the unprotected sex with Jason, which in turn also gave him the infection. So
Right.
he's also becoming a werewolf slowly but surely.
Yeah, and he starts
Yeah,
to realize that it's a thing, and he gets very.
yeah.
I feel like everybody throughout the movie blames Bridget rather than Ginger, which is very interesting because she takes on everything. She takes on Sam thinking that she's the one who's bit because she doesn't want to give away that her sister was the one who was bit. She takes on that boy who also gets turned. She takes on
Right.
Trina. She takes on everything that her sister is doing is like somehow hurting her.
And kind of a dick move from her sister to be able to do that, to just throw everything in her face.
Right, and she has like no care in the world for it. And
Definitely not.
I wanted to also comment on their parents because that's another piece of, I feel like, just awareness. And even when they are aware, it's just they're not very good parents, I would say. So we have like this family dynamic where both girls kind of talk back to their mom and their mom doesn't let their dad talk essentially. And it's interesting because we can see that they pretty much do these movies of them pretending they're dead and all of that because there's such
Mm.
neglection in the family. I feel like their parents really
Yeah,
don't.
the mom is definitely more like standoffish in the relationship. Like she tries to get close to them, but
Hmm.
you can obviously tell that they're very, very different from each other. So
Right. And the mom almost like she believes they trick the mom into thinking that they listen to her and that they'll take her advice and all of that. And she just believes it. She
yeah,
wants
yeah.
them to be very perfect, very pristine, and they're not about that at all. And then the
Hmm.
dad just tries to talk and it never ends up well for him.
Yeah, I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah. And later on in the movie, it gets even worse for him. So, is there anything else that you want to talk about until the Trina
Just
thing?
talking about the plot, I think. So as Ginger keeps going in her transformation, Bridget obviously is trying to help her out. So she talks to Sam, the drug dealer, who gave her some advice about some possible vaccines or cures. So he mentioned Wolf's Bane and Silver, of course. So they figured out that the Wolf's Bane can actually cure the disease if injected into the body of
Mhm.
whoever's affected, right?
Yeah.
So half the movie is them being in Sam's greenhouse together, just talking about it, doing research and stuff like that, which Ginger completely disapproves of, which is
Right.
kind of weird because she's distant from her when she's by herself, but when somebody else is involved, she kind of has to step in and say, "Oh, nobody can be with my step, or nobody can be with my sister
She
unless it's
gets
me."
jealous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like a dick move, and she accuses Sam of wanting to be with Bridget, of
Bridget.
course, which it was kind of implied the whole movie. I think they did that on purpose to kind
Uh-huh.
of make like insinuate that, but he
Right.
had like good intentions from the beginning, right?
I mean,
For the most part,
yeah. I
because
as much as he could.
Ginger, as much as he could, yeah. Well, he didn't do anything out of pocket, which, it was just weird because they
Well,
were having a super weird relationship where it's not based on anything they have in common, but based on helping a freak, pretty much, the werewolf. So,
yeah, it is really interesting because while watching the movie, I was questioning his motives a lot because even though she did go tell him, hey, like, I got bit by the werewolf, it wasn't my sister, it was me, and I need
yeah,
your help to find a cure. But it was just interesting to me how he went along with it. Like, there was no, I'm not doing that, or I don't know what you're talking about. It was automatic, I will help you. And that to me
yeah.
was funny because I was trying to figure out what his intentions were
I wish they would have given some sort of background
on
to
him.
him as to why he wanted to help in the first place. They
Right,
might have brushed over it very shortly, but not enough to give like the full context of his intentions, right? So it
right.
was kind of iffy. And I do think that they kind of did that on purpose a little bit because
Hmm.
Ginger does bring it up when she sees them together. So it was definitely planted in our minds that he wanted to do something, or
To
whatever.
a minor.
Yeah,
um,
exactly, which is definitely no go.
and I think that's what is really cool about that part because then we start to side with Ginger, or at least I did. I started to side with her because I didn't believe his intentions were perfect. I think that's like the cool dynamic where you side with Bridget, but then you start siding with Ginger because they're
Yeah.
always on opposite sides. But I thought that was really cool. So they start to see what could cure this disease. I found it interesting that Sam also didn't really question her saying that she was the one who got bit. Well, we later find out because he knows that it wasn't her. But I thought it was cool that he just kind of kept it to himself until the final moments. He doesn't really question her at all because he wants to help her, I guess.
Yeah.
So then back to the Trina thing. She ends up going, well, no, I mean, we could talk about how Ginger throughout the whole movie, she has a hard time also feeling with becoming a werewolf. There are a lot of moments where we can see that she doesn't care. She's grown into it. She loves it. She talks about how like she loves her changes
Free
and
and
that
open she is now. She's way more
right.
confident. She's got all this
Exactly.
like false
She gets a
confidence about herself too.
yeah,
Kind
she
of
gets
complete 180 of who she was before.
exactly. Before she was talking about how before nobody really liked her and like she didn't really like anybody, but now she's open to like everybody and doing a lot of things. But we can also have moments of weakness where we see her in the bathroom trying to cut her tail out. That to me was also one of those moments where I'm
The,
like, I am
the creepiest
traumatized.
part was like halfway through the movie when she starts noticing her transformations and Bridget notices while Ginger's sleeping that there's something poking out of her bum bum, or at least from her back. So she goes and in a very weird scene, she like goes and pulls her pants down to reveal like this
Her
little
tail.
tiny nub of a tail, which was like super uncomfortable to watch because you see it moving even though Ginger is asleep. So it's kind of got a
Right.
mind of its own.
It's funny because it is horrifying.
No, yeah, when we watched that the first time, it was so I had to rewind it, remember, because it was so like
Yeah. We
off-putting
were
that I
like,
was like,
there's
they
no
really just show
way.
that?
Right, but that's brilliant. That's the brilliant side of it because we looked at each other and we're like, there's no way that that is a tail and they're showing it to us. But yeah, she grew a tail. And then as the movie goes on, she starts to not love it. And there is a scene where Bridget finds her in the bathroom trying to cut her tail out. And those are the scenes that we kind of realize that there's still some piece of her inside that wants to come out. And
Yeah.
I think throughout the movie, those are mostly done like in the beginning because she just keeps getting worse and her inner self keeps being blocked by whatever is happening. But I was going to say that's one of the traumatizing scenes was her trying to cut her tail out. Even though you know that it's not real, there's something about that scene that was just so disturbing to me. But yeah, so then after that,
You were
Trina,
talking about Trina, right? And how
yes.
she was getting upset about the dog. So after a while, right, when Bridget and Ginger have been together for a while, I think they were arguing in the house about the transformation when Trina randomly shows up, starts screaming at them, accusing them and stuff like that, which
Mm-hmm.
eventually leads to them going into the house with Trina.
Yep.
And things start getting a little crazy. Trina pulls out a knife, starts, accusing them of even more stuff where and then, right, you remember Bridget and what am I?
Ginger snaps.
Yeah,
Literally.
yeah, literally, yeah. So Trina, she dies in a very, very uncomfortable way. She slips on, I guess, just the floor. I don't know, something might have been on the floor. She slips and she hits her head on the side of the
Counter.
table, which
Yeah.
breaks it open, and she's bleeding out on the floor. She's dying, and in one of the best parts of the movie, I think, when the sister's mother comes home with a bunch of groceries, they decide to play dead. In the beginning of the movie, it's already been shown that they like to do these types of things. So her mom didn't even pay attention to when Ginger was laying in the bloody floor, motionless. It was just, oh, what are you guys doing? You guys are so silly. Ha ha ha.
Right. That's the thing I was talking about. The parents just don't. They have no
Yeah,
clue what's going on most of the movie.
clueless.
So then they decide to bury Trina in their backyard, essentially, and forget to
Oh no,
bury.
they put her in the freezer, right? In the
Yeah,
deep
yeah.
freezer in the
But
basement.
then they bury her.
Oh, right, yeah.
They
But they
bury her in
first
the
put her in the deep
backyard.
freezer, and the mom almost figures it out because she brought groceries to put into the deep freezer.
Hmm.
And you can see her face just, there as she's opening it up. And then Bridget goes and asks the mom, what do boys like? Something like that, which
Yeah.
is like a super unusual question from Bridget because she doesn't care about that type of stuff, but
Uh-huh.
just anything to get her mom distracted from the horror of the deep freezer.
Hmm. So
And it
then
was
she ends
funny
up
when
not
they went to
seeing it.
go bury her, they try to get her out, right? But her whole body's frozen. So when they grabbed her by the fingers, they broke off, which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
so the
what we
fingers
find.
stay.
And that's what the sister's mom eventually finds. She finds the finger. So
Yeah, she finds the fingers, and then I believe her and her husband end up digging that area later. So they end up finding out that Trina is buried there.
Yeah.
But then there's a Halloween party going on, and Ginger goes to the Halloween party while Bridget basically goes back to Sam's place because he has told her
has the
that he
vaccine
has the
ready, right?
vaccine, right? And Ginger finds them and she gets really upset and starts saying that, wait, she finds Sam, and there's that whole scene, which I don't even know how to describe it. Ginger starts to essentially force Sam into doing things that he doesn't want to do. And then he finally is able to get her off of him, and she's
Yeah.
all pissed, and her hair is like white now. Like she's
Her eyes
just
are white too. They're like dogs. Yeah.
exactly, she's
She has
just
like contact.
turning. So then after that, Ginger is basically looking for Jason, which is the boy, by the way, the boy we
Yeah.
were talking about before. And Ginger gets to the school area, right? And she's just super pissed. She turns from being like, okay, kind of pissed to like just wanting to kill everyone. And she has an
Yeah.
encounter with the school principal.
I think it was the janitor, right?
Well, but it's the school
She
principal first. She kills the
oh,
school principal
yeah.
because he starts getting mad at her because she's just not being a decent human in school, and she ends up killing the vice principal or principal, sorry. And then Bridget finds out and she's super upset, and she tells her to stay in that room and to not leave, and she'll figure something out. And then the janitor, as you said, he starts cleaning the whole school, and he finds out that he has to clean the room that Ginger is in, and she ends up
Yeah.
killing him too. Essentially turning him. And she starts to tell, I can't with their names, they're so similar to me. She starts to tell Bridget that it's the way things have to be and that she could be just like her. Going back to that dying pact, she starts to tell her that she could be exactly like her if she wanted to. And obviously, Bridget does not want to. And then her mother essentially discovers this body, and she's driving to the girls, and then she finds Bridget, and Bridget tells her that, they have to go get the vaccine. And Sam ends up going with her to go back to Ginger and try to
Yeah, they went
heal
to
her.
an abandoned house or something like that.
Mhm.
Or was it their house, right?
It was their house because
Yeah, it
Ginger
was
is
their house.
basically turning into like this huge wolf.
At this
And
point,
it's
she's practically almost already fully transformed, yeah.
yeah,
And this is
it's
probably the part that you like the most because I know you don't like Sam. So tell us what happened to
it's not
Sam.
that I don't like Sam. I just thought his intentions were a little sketchy because I mean
Yeah,
he is a drug dealer. He would go to the school like every single day, and he's not even
yeah.
there. Like he doesn't go there.
I thought Sam was gonna make it throughout the whole movie, but
Turns
he
out
got
he
got.
didn't. He
He
did
got
get
got.
got. So then Sam is trying to be the hero and saying that he will go out there and like pretty much give her the vaccine. But then Ginger and Bridget get into an altercation and she gets bit, right?
Right.
And then instead of during this whole part, which was very, very long in my opinion,
Oh my God, that was
it
so
was
dragged out.
it was very dragged out. I thought they could have given Bridget some of the vaccine or like the full vaccine because
Yeah,
she's starting to turn. There's still
yeah.
saving her, but they don't. They end up dropping the vaccine a million times. Sam gets ripped to shreds completely. Like
Yeah,
he's gone.
this is before Ginger confronts Bridget. It's when Sam comes out of the door just to check things out, and immediately you just hear screams and you see blood on the floor and then blood on the door when she comes aside or decides to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was really freaky. And they were doing a whole chase thing. The prosthetics for the werewolf were actually kind of cool, at least for the time. I like how they didn't make it like CGI and they actually used a real puppet. So
Yeah.
I could appreciate that.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
I'm glad they
Bridget,
didn't use CGI.
but Bridget was right. She had the vaccine in her one hand and she had a
Mm-hmm.
knife in the other hand by the end of the
Mm-hmm.
movie. And I was thinking this is kind of like a dilemma because now both of them are affected, only one cure. So
Right.
one person has to die and one person has to get cured. But you want to tell me what happened later or
She
after
ends
that?
up dropping the vaccine a couple more
Yeah,
times. But then Bridget basically she doesn't want to leave her sister.
definitely not.
And Ginger ends up like lunging at her, and Bridget stabs her with a knife instead of curing
Mm.
her. So then we now have what I assume is dead Ginger. It could, listen,
Uh,
we
but she was
have
still alive, right? She got stabbed, but you can see Bridget, she was giving her hugs, or she was giving her a hug, and then the credits roll. So that makes me kind of think that Bridget accepted her fate as well.
Hmm.
And instead of being, alone and cured, she'd rather be with her sister. So I
Sister.
thought that was kind of sweet. She, instead of taking her sister's life and curing herself, or vice versa, she wanted to have that relationship continue, right? Because of the love that they have for each other.
Well, in IMDb, it does say that Ginger stops breathing. So I'm assuming that she's dead. And all the
But what
crying
is
and hugging
what
her.
is two and Ginger Snaps 2 and 3 about?
It's definitely about Bridget becoming a
Okay.
werewolf. I don't know if her sister is in it, but she is in the photo for the second book. I mean, the second movie. I don't know if she's going to be in it or not, but what an interesting movie. It's
Yeah.
definitely one of those that I would recommend for everyone. If you
I've
haven't
still been
watched it,
thinking about it even after we watched it like 2 weeks ago.
right,
Like
it's
I still
something that
think about
stays
it
in
and
your
like
head like forever. Yeah, absolutely.
it's
So
definitely one of those culty films that people who don't know about it won't know, but once they get exposed to it, I think they'll really enjoy it.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
see anybody not liking this movie. There's something for everyone in it, and it's very, very
definitely.
interesting.
And it's
So,
creepy and it has an interesting story and it has good concepts, good themes. So overall, it was like
exactly.
a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Can't wait to watch the second one. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And one more thing before you die.
One more thing before you die. Just have to get that out there too.
Exactly.